The large room was silent except for the soft humming of the machines. Ambassador Minsu sat at the polished table made of a material so clear it looked like glass, but was stronger than any metal humans had ever made. Across from him sat the Vexathari delegation. They were tall beings, almost 3 meters high, with skin that shimmered between purple and blue colors. Their eyes were large and dark, and they did not move the way humans moved. Every motion was slow and controlled, like they were thinking about each tiny movement before they made it. Minsu took a slow breath. He had trained for this moment his whole life. He was a diplomat, one of the best that Earth had produced. His gray hair showed his years of experience. His dark eyes were sharp and careful. He wore a simple gray suit, nothing fancy. The humans had learned that showing off was not a good idea when meeting new civilizations in space. It made them seem weak or foolish. Dr. Jiwon sat next to him. She was a scientist and an expert on alien technology. She was younger than Minsu, maybe 50 years old, with short black hair and glasses that she adjusted nervously. On her lap was a thin computer device that showed all the information they needed. She kept looking at the screen, reading the translations of what the Vexathari were saying. The Vexathari leader stood up slowly. His name was something that humans could not pronounce properly, so everyone called him Commander Vel. He placed his long hands flat on the table. "Your species is taking what belongs to us," Commander Vel said. His voice was deep and strange, like rocks moving underground. "The planet you call Kepler 442b is not open for settlement. It belongs to the ancient Vexathari Empire. You must leave it. You have 72 hours to remove all humans from that world. If you do not, we will remove you ourselves." Minsu leaned forward a little. He did not show fear on his face, even though his heart was beating fast. "Commander Vel, we did not know that Kepler 442b was claimed by your people. When humans discovered the planet, there were no signs of any civilization living there. We came with peaceful intentions. We are building colonies there, growing food, trying to create a new home for human families. We are not trying to steal anything." "Intention does not matter," said another Vexathari, this one slightly smaller. "You are taking resources. You are mining metals from our land. You are building structures on our world. This is not acceptable. You have 72 hours. Dr. Jiwon's fingers moved quickly across her computer. She typed a message to Minsu. He read it on his small personal device. It said, "They're serious, and they have more ships than we expected. I count at least 7 capital vessels outside the planet's orbit." Minsu felt his chest tighten. 72 hours. That was 3 days. He tried to keep his voice calm and steady. "We respectfully ask for more time," Minsu said. "Moving 200,000 people from a planet takes time. Ships must be prepared. We cannot do this in just 3 days. We need at least 2 weeks, maybe 3. We will pay you if you want payment. We will sign treaties. We will do whatever is fair and right." Commander Vel did not change his expression. 72 hours. "This is not a discussion. This is a fact." "Perhaps," Jiwon said quietly, "we could discuss sharing the planet. Your people could have certain areas, and our people could have other areas. We could live together peacefully." The Vexathari delegation made no sound, but somehow Minsu knew they were laughing. Finally, Commander Vel spoke again. "No, humans are not compatible with Vexathari settlement. You destroy things. You make noise. You reproduce too quickly. 72 hours. Then we come." The meeting ended. There was nothing more to say. The 2 human diplomats stood and walked out of the room. As they moved through the corridors of the station where they had been meeting, Minsu felt the weight of everything pressing down on him. Back on Kepler 442b, Colonel Kwan was waiting for news. He sat in the command center, a large underground room filled with computers and screens. Maps of the planet showed where the human colonies were. Green dots showed safe areas. Yellow dots showed areas of concern. Red dots showed places that were dangerous or damaged. Colonel Kwan was a military man, strong and serious. His face was hard and lined from years of service. He had fought in 3 different wars for Earth, and he knew what war looked like. He hoped he would not have to fight again, but he was not going to be surprised if it happened. His second-in-command, Captain Hae-il, stood next to him. She was younger but very smart about organization and planning. She had been working on evacuation plans since the humans first heard that the Vexathari might be a problem. "We just received a message from the station," Hae-il said. "The talks did not go well. We have 72 hours. Quan closed his eyes for just a moment. He had expected something like this, but hearing it was different from expecting it. Start the evacuation protocols, Quan said, quietly. We do not want to start a panic. Tell people it is a practice drill. Get the women and children first. The elderly and the sick go on the first ships. We can fit maybe 100,000 people on the civilian transports. The rest will have to go to the underground bunkers. Those bunkers were built strong. They can protect people from an attack from space. Hale nodded. She had already known this was coming. She started giving orders into her communication device. Quan looked at the map of Kepler 442b. The planet was beautiful. It had blue oceans and green forests. The humans had found it 5 years ago, and they had worked hard to build a place where they could live. Farms were growing. Factories were being built. Children were being born. Homes were being made. Now it might all burn. But Quan was a soldier. He knew how to do what was necessary. He started making his own plans. He checked the military weapons. He counted the soldiers under his command. He looked at the supply lines. He began to prepare for something he hoped would not come, but feared it would. On Earth, very far away, the news was spreading. Humans watched the screens and saw the reports. The Vexthari had given them an ultimatum. Leave or fight. The world held its breath. Families waited to hear if their loved ones on Kepler 442b would be able to escape. Ships began to launch from Earth. Military vessels began to accelerate through space. Everyone knew what was happening. War was coming. The universe was about to teach humanity something important. Humans were not as weak as everyone thought. Minsu, still at the negotiation station, sent one final message to Earth. It was short and simple. They will not negotiate. Prepare the fleet. Prepare for the worst. The 72 hours had begun to count down. The second day of negotiations began with false hope. Minsu and Jiwan arrived at the meeting room with new proposals. They had worked through the night, thinking of new ways to solve the problem. Maybe the Vexthari wanted money. Maybe they wanted mining rights to other planets. Maybe they wanted technology in exchange. Minsu believed that every conflict could be solved if you found the right price, the right offer, the right reason. He was wrong. Commander Vel listened to every proposal without changing his expression. Then he spoke. No, he said. All of this is meaningless. Humans will leave Kepler 442b. This is decided. You have time left to do this, but do not waste words trying to change what is final. Jiwan tried a different approach. Commander, perhaps you could tell us why this planet is so important to the Vexthari. We could understand better if you explained. I owe you no explanations, Vel said. His voice was cold and sharp. Humans are a young species. You think the universe works the way it works on your planet. You think negotiation means something. It does not. The strong take what they want. The weak accept this. You are weak. This is the way of things. Minsu felt something inside him break a little. He looked at Vel's face and realized something terrible. The Vexithari had never wanted to negotiate. They had never planned to listen. The negotiation was just theater, a show to make it seem like they were being fair. The decision had already been made before Minsu and Jiwan even arrived. You sent a warship, Minsu said. It was not a question. He had just realized it. The universe was large and warships took time to travel. If the Vexthari had decided to attack, they would have sent a ship before this meeting even started. Commander Vel stood up. 72 hours have become 36 hours. My dreadnought arrives in 1 day and 1 night. It is named the Velkareth. It is large enough to destroy a city in 1 strike. I am telling you this so you understand that your situation is not one where you can escape or hide. Humans will evacuate or Kepler 442b will become a tomb. The Vexthari delegation walked out of the room. The meeting was over. There was no more negotiation. There was only waiting for war. Minsu stood frozen for a moment. Jiwan grabbed his arm. We need to leave the station now, she said. They might not let us go in a few hours. Get to the shuttle. Go back to Earth. But Minsu shook his head. I have to go to Kepler 442b. I have to tell Quan what is happening. I have to be there. That is suicide, Jiwan said. Maybe, said Minsu. But someone who was at these talks needs to be on the ground. Someone who knows what the Vexthari really want. Or rather, what they have decided they want. Quan needs this information. Before Jiwan could argue, Minsu was already moving toward the hangar. She ran after him. A small shuttle was being prepared. It took only 30 minutes to reach Kepler 442b from the station. When they landed at the main colony, the air was wrong. People were moving fast. Things were being loaded onto ships. Soldiers were everywhere. Colonel Quan saw them coming and met them at the landing platform. His face was serious. "We have 36 hours now," Minsu said quickly. "The Vexithari have a dreadnought. It is called the Velkarath. It arrives in 1 day. They will destroy everything if we do not evacuate." Quan's jaw tightened. He had known something like this was coming, but hearing the exact time made it real. "How big is this dreadnought?" he asked. "Massive," Jiwan answered. She had been in the military before she became a scientist. She understood ship classifications. Based on what the Vexithari said, it is probably 3 kilometers long. It carries weapons that can destroy a building in a single shot. It can destroy a city in minutes. Quan said nothing for a moment. Then he turned to Captain Hai-Il, who had come running toward them. "How many people can we get off the planet?" he asked. 130,000 on the civilian transports, Hai-Il said. "The other 70,000 will go into the deep bunkers. They are protected. If there is an attack from space, most of the bombs will burn up in the atmosphere or hit the ground. The bunkers can protect people from the impact. Most of the bombs," Quan said quietly. "That is not good enough. That is not enough certainty. It is all we have," Hai-Il replied. Quan looked at Minsu and Jiwan.
"Can you get me information about the Velkarath?"
"Its weapon systems, its shield strength, its power source." "I have some data," Jiwan said. "The Vexthari were not careful about hiding their ship specifications from human sensors. But I need better intelligence. I need to study the information more carefully. If I can find a weakness in their systems, maybe we can—" "Stop it?" Quan asked. "You think we can stop a dreadnought with our small military force?" "I think," Jiwan said slowly, "that we might be able to buy time. And time is the only thing that matters right now." Quan made a decision. "Dr. Jiwan, I need you to come with me. We are setting up a command center in the deepest bunker. You will work with our military scientists and engineers. We will look for anything we can use. Captain Hai-Il, continue the evacuation. Get as many people off this planet as possible." Minsu stepped forward. "I should go back to the station. I should tell them what we know." "The station has no authority," Quan said. "The only authority that matters now is military power. You stay here with Dr. Jiwan. Help her find a way to hurt the Velkarath." They moved quickly through the colony. People were saying goodbye to their homes. Some were crying. Some were angry. Some were in shock. Soldiers helped them onto the ships. Children held their parents' hands. The evacuation was organized but sad. These people had come to Kepler 442b to build a new life. They had succeeded. And now they had to leave it all behind. Deep underground in the bunker, Jiwan sat down at a computer station. Military scientists gathered around her. She began to access all the data they had collected about Vexithari ships. "Here," she said after several minutes. "Look at this. The shield system runs on a specific frequency. It cycles through different frequencies to avoid electromagnetic attacks. But there is a gap. Just a few microseconds, but it is there. Every 3 seconds, the shields must reset. For just a moment, there is a vulnerability." Quan looked at the data. A vulnerability of a few microseconds. It did not seem like much. But a few microseconds could mean the difference between a protected ship and a destroyed one. A few microseconds could mean the difference between death and life. "Can our weapons fire in that window?" Quan asked. "Maybe," Jiwan said. "But we would need to be very close. And we would need to time it perfectly. It would take luck and skill and everything to go right." "Do we have a choice?" Quan asked. "No," Jiwan said. "We do not." Quan looked out from the deep bunker. Above his head, 70,000 people were trying to sleep, not knowing if tomorrow would come. Somewhere in space, a dreadnought was moving through the black, and humanity was preparing to stand against the darkness with only intelligence, will, and desperation as weapons. The countdown continued. 36 hours became 30 hours. 30 hours became 20. The universe was watching. The fate of humanity on Kepler 442b was about to be decided. The morning the Velkarath arrived, the sky turned black. It was not the normal black of night or of clouds. It was the black of something so large that it blocked out the sun. The dreadnought came through space like a mountain of metal and weapons. It was 3 kilometers long, just as Jiwan had said. It was shaped like a blade, pointed and sharp. When it reached the orbit above Kepler 442b, it began to move into position. Commander Narration was on the carrier battleship Soul's Resolve. She stood on the bridge and watched the screens. She was a military commander and she had seen many things. Her face was calm, but her hands were tight against the edge of the control panel. Around her, dozens of crew members worked at computers and stations. The ship felt like it was holding its breath. "The Vexthari ship has entered orbit," said the detection officer. His voice was steady, but Narration could hear the fear underneath. "How many escort ships?" Narration asked. 12 capital ships, 20 smaller frigates, maybe 40 fighter-class ships." Narration looked at the numbers on her display. She had only 2 carrier ships, 6 destroyers, and 12 smaller combat ships. She had about 150 fighter aircraft. On paper, the Vexthari had more than 10 times the military force that she had. On paper, humanity would lose this battle in minutes. But Narration did not believe in what was on paper. She believed in what humans could do when they had nothing else to do but try. "Scramble all fighters," Narration said. "Launch now, and send a message to the ground forces. Tell them we are buying them time." On Kepler 442b, the first attack came without warning. A beam of energy shot down from the Vel'Karath. It was bright yellow and hot. Where it hit the ground, the earth turned to glass and then to ash. It was like the sun had come down from the sky and touched the world. The explosion was so big that it shook the underground bunker where Quan was standing. "First strike on Sector 7, reported a military officer. Population center. We do not know the casualties yet." Quan closed his eyes for 1 second. Then he opened them again and focused on the task in front of him. Grief would come later. Right now, people needed to be saved. "All soldiers to defensive positions," Quan ordered. "Activate the air defense systems. Fire on anything that enters our airspace. And someone get me Commander Narration. Now." Up in the sky above Kepler 442b, the first human fighters were launching. These were young pilots, brave pilots, pilots who knew they were probably going to die. Their planes were fast and small. They carried weapons that could destroy ships if they could get close enough. But getting close was the hard part. The first engagement happened 300 kilometers above the planet. The human fighters saw the Vexthari fighters coming, dark shapes against the black of space. Then they met each other. The battle was chaos and noise and light. Missiles flew, guns fired. Ships exploded into fire. Young pilot Kim Tae-hee was in a fighter plane called a Link 7. He had trained for 3 years for this moment. He did not want to think about it too much. He just did what he was trained to do. He targeted a Vexthari fighter and fired. The missile screamed through space. It hit the target. The Vexthari fighter became a ball of fire and then was nothing at all. But there were so many Vexthari fighters. More kept coming. And they were good. They had been fighting wars for thousands of years. Humans had only been in space for 100 years. One by one, human fighters were destroyed. The pilots did not die easy deaths. They died trying. They died fighting. They died knowing that their deaths meant something. On the ground, Corporal Sujin was manning a pulse cannon turret on the edge of the colony. She could see the sky lighting up with fire and explosions. She could hear the sound of war coming closer. Her hands were shaking, but she kept them steady on the weapon controls. A Vexthari fighter came at low altitude trying to destroy the weapons. Sujin targeted it. The cannon fired. The beam of energy ripped through the sky. The fighter exploded. One less enemy. She felt strange. She was happy and sad and afraid all at the same time. She was only 23 years old. This was her first day of combat. Lieutenant Daewon led a tactical team toward the nearest civilian bunker. He had 15 soldiers with him. Their job was to protect the people in the bunker and make sure the Vexthari did not reach them. He did not know if they could succeed. He only knew they had to try. The ground above them was covered with fire. Buildings were collapsing. The air was full of smoke. But Daewon and his team kept moving. They set up defensive positions around the bunker entrance. They dug shallow trenches. They prepared their weapons. When the Vexthari ground troops arrived, they came in landing ships that dropped down from above like metal storms. Hundreds of Vexthari soldiers emerged. They were tall and strong, and they carried weapons that humans had never seen before. The weapons fired beams of blue light that destroyed everything they touched. Daewon's team returned fire. Their bullets and energy weapons cut through the Vexthari soldiers. Some fell, but there were so many. They kept coming, wave after wave. It was like trying to stop the ocean with a wall made of sand. Commander Narration was fighting in space and watching the battle on the ground at the same time. The videos coming from Kepler 442b showed the destruction. She saw cities burning. She saw people running. She saw soldiers fighting and dying, but she also saw something else. She saw humans refusing to break. She saw humans fighting even when they should have surrendered. She saw humans protecting each other. All ships move to position Alpha, she commanded. Execute the inverse formation. Her officers looked confused. The inverse formation was a tactic that no military had used in 1,000 years. It was too dangerous. Ships that used it would expose themselves to damage. But Narration did not care. She was not trying to keep her ship safe. She was trying to hurt the enemy. The human fleet moved into a tight pattern. It was like they were trying to get close to the Vexthari ships instead of staying away. The Vexthari commanders did not understand this tactic. It was inefficient. It was wrong. But before they could react, human weapons fired from short range. The Velkarath shields flickered for just a moment. It was exactly what Jiwan had predicted. And that moment was enough. Human missiles streaked toward the big ship. Some were intercepted, but some got through. They hit the ship's side. Fire appeared on the metal skin. The Velkarath had been hurt. On the ground, Quan saw the signal from Narration. The shields were down just for a moment. Just long enough. All railgun units, Quan shouted. Fire, fire everything now! From positions all over the colony, massive weapons pointed at the sky. They fired. The railguns were old weapons, but they were powerful. They accelerated metal projectiles to speed so fast they were almost impossible to stop. The projectiles ripped through the air. They hit the Velkarath. The great ship shook. Systems failed. Explosions started inside the ship. For the first time, the Vexthari were hurt. For the first time, they were not invincible. The battle continued through the day and into the night. Humans died, many of them. But they also killed Vexithari. They also hurt the enemy. They also refused to lose. When morning came again, the Velkarath was badly damaged. Its shields were gone. Its weapons were not working right. And humanity was still fighting. The universe was learning something new. Deep in the bunker, Dr. Jiwan was working on something that might be called a miracle or might be called suicide. She was trying to create a computer virus that would break into the Velkarath systems and make the shields fail for longer than just a few seconds. The Vexithari had technology that was very advanced, but they had never expected to fight humans. They had never expected to face someone who might think like them, but in a different way. The virus was complicated. It had to break through layers and layers of security. It had to understand a computer language that humans had never heard before. But Jiwan was brilliant, and she had studied every bit of Vexthari technology that humans had ever collected. She sat at her computer for 2 days without sleeping. She did not eat much. She just worked. Her fingers moved across the keyboard. Code appeared on the screen. Lines of logic that would make the Vexthari systems confused. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. I have it, she said finally. Her voice was rough from not talking. Her eyes were heavy from not sleeping. I have the virus. It will break into their communication network. It will send false commands to their shield system. The shields will think they are being attacked. They will go into emergency shutdown, and they will stay down for at least 30 seconds. Colonel Quan looked at her. 30 seconds? Maybe longer, Jiwan said. But I cannot promise more than 30 seconds. 30 seconds seemed like nothing. But in a battle, 30 seconds was forever. 30 seconds was enough time to fire weapons. 30 seconds was enough time to hurt something that was supposed to be invincible. Can you send this virus from the ground? Quan asked. I can try, Jiwan said. If they detect it, they might stop it. But if I time it right and if we have some luck, it should work. The virus will piggyback on a communication signal. It will look like normal information. Then when it reaches their ship, it will activate. Do it, Quan said. Jiwan's hands moved over the keyboard again. She was sending the virus into space now. It was leaving Kepler 442b like a ghost, invisible and waiting. She was sending it toward the Velkarath. Up in space, Commander Narration was preparing something too. She was preparing for the most dangerous maneuver a space fleet could make. She was going to sacrifice her own ships to hurt the enemy. All pilots prepare for close engagement, she said. We are going to get inside the Vexthari formation. We are going to force them to come close to us. When they come close, we are going to hit them with everything. Her officers looked shocked. Getting close to enemy ships in space was suicide. Missiles worked better from far away. But Narration had studied human history. She knew that humans had always fought better when things got personal. Humans fought better when they could see their enemy. It was part of human nature. The human fleet accelerated. The ships were slow compared to Vexithari fighters, but they were faster than the big capital ships. The human pilots were better at flying in this way because they had nothing to lose. Fear and desperation made them faster than any training could. The Vexithari were confused. They had expected the humans to run away or attack from far away. But the humans were coming at them like angry animals. The Vexithari did not understand this. "Launch all fighters," the Vexithari commander ordered. "Destroy the human ships." The sky exploded with weapons fire. But now the human ships were close enough to fire their own weapons. The battle became a terrible dance of explosions and light. Human ships died. Vexithari ships died. But the humans kept pushing forward, kept getting closer, kept refusing to break. Major Hyunjae was waiting on the ground. He had the biggest weapons that Kepler 4482b had. The railguns were mounted on mobile platforms. They were weapons of last resort. They could destroy almost anything, but they were slow to move and slow to aim. Waiting for the order, he said to his team. His voice was calm, but inside he was terrified. His mission was to fire these weapons at the exact right moment. If he fired too early, the shields would repair themselves. If he fired too late, there would not be enough time. He had to be perfect. His communication device crackled. It was Dr. G1. "Virus away. I am sending it now. 30 seconds until it hits the Velkarath." Major Hyunjae looked at his chronometer. He started counting. 29, 28, 27. On the Velkarath, the virus arrived. It came through the communication lines like a tiny bomb. The Vexithari computer systems tried to stop it. But the virus was clever. It was designed to look like something that belonged in their system. By the time the Vexithari realized what was happening, it was too late. The shields went down. "Now," Quan shouted into the communication device. "Hyunjae, fire now! Destroy that ship." Major Hyunjae did not hesitate. His hand came down on the firing button. The railguns fired. They fired all at once. The weapons made a sound like thunder. The metal projectiles accelerated to speeds that would make a bullet look like it was standing still. They streaked through the air and through space. They hit the Velkarath right where the thermal reactors were. The ship's computer systems had been designed to protect the reactors. But the reactors needed to be open to release heat. With the shields down, there was nothing to protect them. The projectiles punched through the metal like it was paper. They crashed into the reactors. The explosions started small. Then they got bigger. Then they got huge. The Velkarath's power system was failing. Fires started inside the ship. Systems began to shut down. The big dreadnought that was supposed to be invincible was dying. "All units," the Vexithari commander on the ship said. "Prepare for emergency jump to hyperspace." The ship was failing. The only choice was to try to jump to hyperspace to escape, but hyperspace jumps were dangerous when the ship was damaged. It was dangerous to jump when the ship's systems were not working right. The Velkarath tried anyway. The ship's engines powered up. The jump was initiated, but the systems were too damaged. The jump failed. The ship tried to enter hyperspace but was not able to. It was caught between normal space and hyperspace. The forces tore the ship apart. For a moment there was nothing, just silence and emptiness. Then the ship exploded. Not a small explosion, a huge explosion. The Velkarath tore itself apart in a display of light and energy so bright that it looked like a second sun had appeared above Kepler 442b. The remaining Vexithari ships in orbit saw this. Their biggest ship, their flagship, their protection was gone. The Vexithari commanders made a decision. They turned their ships away from Kepler 442b. They started to leave. "The enemy is retreating," a human officer shouted. "They are leaving the system." The human forces in space pursued them for a while, making sure they really were leaving. When it was clear that the Vexithari were not coming back, the human pilots began to return to their ships. On the ground, Colonel Quan stood still for a moment. The battle was over. They had won. But when he looked at the screen showing the damage to the colony, he saw how much they had lost. 70,000 people were still alive in the bunkers. Another 130,000 had managed to escape to the ships. But the cities were gone. The farms were gone. The homes were gone. They had won the battle. But the cost had been terrible. Still, they had won. Humans had stood against a force that was supposed to be unbeatable. And humans had not fallen. The universe was learning that lesson now. 3 days after the end of the battle, the survivors began to come out of the bunkers. The ground above them was scarred and burned. Where there had been buildings, there was only ash. Where there had been trees, there was only black carbon. But the bunkers had held. The walls had protected the people inside. Colonel Kwan emerged into the daylight. He had not seen the sun for 2 weeks. The light hurt his eyes. Around him, others were coming out too. They were dirty and tired and sad. Many of them had lost family members. Many of them had lost everything they owned. But they were alive. That was what mattered. Captain Hay-Il was checking the evacuation records. She was making sure that she had accounted for every person. In the chaos of war, people got lost sometimes. People did not show up on lists. But Hay-Il was a good organizer. She found that every single person who had been in the bunkers was accounted for. All 70,000 of them were alive. The other 130,000 made it to the escape ships, Hay-Il told Kwan. They are safe. They are heading back to Earth or to the station in high orbit. They will be okay, Kwan nodded. That was 200,000 people alive. It was not everyone. Some had died before they could reach the bunkers. Some had died in the battle. The total death count was around 5,000. In a normal situation, 5,000 deaths would be a disaster. But when you were fighting for your life against an enemy that should have killed everyone, 5,000 survivors out of 200,000 was almost a miracle. Kwan looked at the destruction around him. The colony would have to be rebuilt. The farms would have to be replanted. The houses would have to be built again. It would take years, maybe decades. But humans had done this before. Humans had a talent for starting over. On the battleship Soul's Resolve, Commander Narration was reviewing the damage. The fleet had lost 4 ships completely destroyed. 2 more were so badly damaged they might not be fixable. 120 pilots had died. The survivors were tired and traumatized, but the Vexithari were gone. That was all that mattered. Narration had done what she set out to do. She had bought time for the people on the ground. She had protected humanity. She received a message from Minsu. It was time for a new negotiation. It was time for humanity to go back to the table with the hegemonic council. But this time things would be different. This time, humanity would speak from a position of strength. 2 weeks later, Ambassador Minsu sat at the negotiation table again. But this time Commander Narration was standing beside him. This time there was a military presence. This time humanity was not begging, it was stating facts. The Vel'Karath is destroyed, Minsu said. His voice was clear and strong. Your dreadnought is gone. Your commander's name will be forgotten. Your people experienced what it is like to be defeated. The Vexithari delegation was different now. Their leader was a new commander, not Vel. Vel had died on the destroyed ship. The new leader looked at Minsu with something that might have been respect. You did not evacuate, the new leader said. You fought. We fought, Minsu said. We always fight. You miscalculated. You did not understand what humans are. Humans do not surrender when they are cornered. Humans do not break when they face superior force. Humans become dangerous. We see this now, said the Vexithari leader. Kepler 442b will remain a human colony, Minsu said. We will rebuild it. We will make it stronger than it was. And if anyone else tries to take it from us, we will defend it again. We will defend any human world that is attacked. This is our promise. The Vexithari delegation listened. They understood now. The days of easy conquest were over. Humanity was a new player in the galaxy, and humanity fought differently than they did. We will not attack humanity again, the new leader said. Good, Minsu said, because if you did, we would be waiting. The negotiation ended. There was a new agreement. Kepler 442b would remain a human colony. Humans would have the right to settle on other planets in other systems, and the hegemonic council would recognize humanity as a power that needed to be respected. On Kepler 442b, the work of rebuilding had already started. Dr. Jiwan was working on new defense systems. Colonel Kwan was training new soldiers. Captain Hay-Il was organizing the construction of new housing. Corporal Su-Jin stood on a hill overlooking the scarred landscape. She could see where the destroyed buildings used to be. She could see where her friends had died. She could see where the bombs had hit. But she could also see something else. She could see the beginning of new construction. She could see humans starting to rebuild. She was only 23 years old, but she felt much older now. She had seen war. She had killed. She had survived. And now she was going to help build something new from the ashes of the old. Lieutenant Day One was leading a training program for new soldiers. These were young people who had lived through the battle. They had seen what the Vexithari could do. Now they wanted to learn how to fight better, how to defend their home better. Day One understood. He had been the same way. The experience of battle changed you. It made you understand what was important. It made you understand what you were willing to fight for. Our job, he told the new soldiers, is to make sure that what happened to us never happens to anyone else. If another colony is attacked, we will send ships and soldiers to help them. We will not abandon them. This is what humanity does. This is what makes us different from the Vexithari. The soldiers listened carefully. They understood. They had learned that lesson in Blood and Fire. Commander Narration received a promotion. She became the leader of the human space force. She was given orders to expand the military and to develop new ships. Humanity was going to be ready for anything the galaxy could throw at them, but Narration did not want to glorify war. She understood that victory came at a cost. She made sure that the families of the soldiers who had died received support and help. She made sure that the wounded received the best medical care. She honored the dead by making sure their sacrifice meant something. Months passed. The colony began to look like it might be a real place again. New buildings were built. New farms were planted. Children were born to parents who had survived the battle. Life continued. On the first anniversary of the battle, a ceremony was held. They gathered at the monument that they had built to honor the soldiers and civilians who had died. 5,000 names were carved into a metal wall. Humans looked at those names and remembered. Colonel Kwan stood at the monument with Dr. Jiwan. They did not speak. There was nothing to say. The monument said everything. That evening, humanity on Kepler 442b looked up at the sky. They looked at the stars. They knew that out there, in the darkness between those stars, other species were living and thinking and building their own civilizations. Some of them might be friendly. Some might be enemies. But humans on Kepler 442b were not afraid anymore. They had proven something to themselves and to the galaxy. They had proven that they could survive. They had proven that they could fight. They had proven that they could win. Commander Narration was on her ship in orbit. She was looking down at the colony below. She was satisfied with what she saw. The colony was alive. It was strong. It was human. She opened a communication channel to Earth. "Tell them," she said. "Tell Earth that we held. Tell them that we did not break. Tell them that humanity is here to stay." The message was sent across the distance of space. It traveled back to Earth. And on Earth, humanity received it and understood. Humanity would not be pushed around in this galaxy. Humanity would not disappear. Humanity would not bow down. Humanity held its breath and then it breathed out again. And in that breathing there was a sound like a roar. The galaxy had learned a new lesson. Never take humanity's surrender for granted. Never assume humans will not fight. Because in the moment when humans have nothing left but their will to survive, that will become the most powerful force in creation. The future was uncertain. More battles might come. More conflicts might happen. But humanity was ready now. Humanity had learned how to stand.